is extremely significant. And this has been completely omitted by scholars. This is long after, Moses was following the ark through the desert. It took him 40 years to do a route that usually took only a year. Okay? I know this because my father, actually my grandfather, my father is Iranian, and my grandfather was a guide that brought people to Mecca from Iran. And it took him 6 months there and 6 months back in the desert. And so these routes were well known. And actually, my grandfather lived to the age of 128. And I believe that it's because he went to Mecca, to the Kaaba, which held the black crystal, the dark stone, or the black sun, as described by the Sumerian plates, given to man by the sun gods. But in any case, Moses is taking 40 years to do a route that should have taken a year. Why? Because he's following the ark. It's very clear in the Judaic tradition and in the rabbinic tradition that the ark is moving on its own. Whenever the ark lifts and starts going, they would lift camp and follow it. And whenever the ark would stop, they would stop and put a camp up. Sometimes they would stay there for 3-4 years before the ark would start going again. So this ark seemed to have anti-gravitic capability. It seemed to be able to hover. There's instances where they describe the ark lifting the high priest that carried it. So I'm thinking about all this, and then eventually, Moses dies, and Joshua has taken the lead. And Joshua arrives at the Jordan. And this is where I found this really interesting thing. Joshua arrives at the Jordan, and the Jordan is running at flood level. There's no way they can cross with the tribes of Israel. They're trying to get to Jericho on the other side. So Joshua doesn't know what to do, and he asks God. And God says, Now, this is describing the high priest taking the ark and going into the water of the Jordan with the ark. And as soon as they put their feet in the Jordan with the ark, the waters are cut up. Okay? And then it says, and then there's a whole bunch of other things. This is Joshua 4:22 for people that want to refer it. And the priests came up out of the river, carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord. No sooner they had set their feet on dry ground than the water of the Jordan returned to their place and ran at flood stage as before. So they went into the Jordan, sat there with the ark, while all of the tribes of Israel went across, and the water was stopped. And then as soon as they got out, the water started to flow again. Well, I thought that's interesting, because one evidence of gravitational effect would be to stop the course of water. But what blew my mind is what comes next. At the end of that chapter, for the Lord your God, they're talking about the ark, dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. The Lord your God did to the Jordan just what had been done to the Red Sea when he dried up before us, when he dried it up before us until we had crossed over. Wow. That has been omitted. Because this says that they used the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord to open the Red Sea with Moses. But in the section where they talk about opening the Red Sea, they just say Moses lift up his staff and open his arm and the Red Sea opened. They forgot to mention that the ark was involved with this staff. And so here they do, though. Here they make it very obvious that the power of the ark was used to open the Red Sea. That means the ark was not the box that was built at the foot of Mount Sinai after opening the Red Sea. The power of the ark had to be there with Moses before he crossed the Red Sea. And thus it was something else. The box was only something to carry it across the desert for 40 years. Probably he didn't have time to take the box out when he left Egypt. He just took the crystal. Go ahead.
Do you think Ethiopia has the Ark of the Covenant now?
I'm going to get to that. So, are you guys all following this?
Yes.
Okay. So I was really excited. I was like, oh my God, this is really real. I mean, they're really talking about some object. And this is kind of tough to do, but we can, I started to look into it, and I found more and more evidence that the ark was this crystalline structure. I found the Ezekiel text. I found the Keys of Enoch text, and I thought, wait a minute, what are they talking about? Well, I looked deeper into the Kabbalistic tradition, and when I did, I found that they didn't just give you like hints to what the geometry was. They actually said, this is the Kabbalistic tree, this is the foundation of all creation, and if you decode this, you'll understand all of the universe. So I knew there that they were giving us a really good key to what was powering the Ark of the Covenant, since the Ark was thought to be the seat of God, the seat of the universe. And the Kabbalistic tree can commonly be described as the tree of knowledge as well. The tree that was placed in the Garden of Eden at the center of our Genesis. So when I looked at it, I thought, what is this? And I started to read Kabbalistic tradition texts and all this. Oh my God, I got so confused. It was so confusing. There's so much stuff out there, and it's all philosophy. And I was really kind of not being able to find anything that was jiving, but I was looking at the geometry, and what I did is I plastered it on the ceiling of my van so I could lay in my bed and look at it in the morning, every morning, and I was trying to decode it. And really quickly, I realized that the bottom part was a tetrahedron, and that the top part was an octahedron. But I didn't know what this middle part was. This X with a box around it. I didn't know how to deal with that. And then I realized, wait a minute, this box here, this rectangle, fits in this upper rectangle. So I thought, oh, maybe they just took it and squashed it. So I took the top part and slid the bottom into it. And boom, the result was a tetrahedron and an octahedron on top, which is all of the vertices you need to generate the star tetrahedron with the octahedron in the middle. You guys see this? To generate this, all you need is a tetrahedron and an octahedron. and all the vertices, and you can start